Welcome to this episode of CPG Brand Builders, and I'm excited because today we're going to talk about kombucha. Now, you might be thinking, what does this have to do with me? What am I doing this for? Well, if you are in a competitive category, whether that is salty snacks, it is in chips, cereals, whatever it may be, you're going to have to figure out what strategies should I be employing right now that is going to help me grow and actually get market share. And so I'm going to use this category right now to talk it through. You are not going to want to miss it. So when we talk about kombucha, I don't know what your experience is with it, but when I first heard about it 10, 15 years ago, a friend came out to me and said, "Hey, Braden, I know you're into food and stuff. You got to try this kombucha." And she got it, and it was like in this glass bottle. It was a little bit like cloudy in there. And I was like, that looks disgusting. I don't think I want to touch this at all. Like, ew, no. And she's like, no, just try it. It's really good. It's good for your gut. Now, this was, 10, 15 years ago, gut health was not a hot trend. It was something that people kind of talked about a little bit. There was some research coming out on probiotics at the time, and maybe even prebiotics was a term that was being used. But this one, she was like, "Braden, you're going to love it." And so I remember trying it, and I was like, oh gosh. And I remember just taking a sip, and I thought, oh, actually, that's not too bad. Drank the whole bottle too fast. I drank it, and I was like, oh my gosh, my gut for the next day was so bad. It was so wrecked. And I was like, I'm never touching this again. A couple days later, she's like, no, you got to try it again. I'm like, I don't want to do that again. She's like, no, you just got to try it. I did it. All of a sudden, you start feeling better. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. I'm actually enjoying this kombucha. And I feel a little bit more sophisticated because now I'm in the know. And that was my first foray into the world of kombucha. Now, since then, functional beverages have been taking off. And if you look at any retailer, any kind of, fridge section right now, you go in there and we have prebiotics, probiotics, we have functional adaptogens, we have botanicals, we have so many different options to choose from. And kombucha, in my opinion, it is under attack. It is one of those areas that we're like, okay, well, what's happening? So let's give you some context. So if we look at the total US beverage category, that includes water, juice, carbonated, it is about $300 billion industry, right? So $300 billion. I would say North America, US, we love our soft drinks. We love to drink stuff. Now, carbonated soft drinks is about 55 billion, right? So pretty big, right? Carbonated soft drinks. Kombucha right now is 1.5 billion. So it's about 2 to 3% of the whole category, which means it's teeny tiny, right? Teeny tiny category, which means it is on the fringe. It's growing though. So for me, whenever you see kind of fringe categories within a bigger set, it means that one, you're going to have an early adopter audience, usually premium priced because it's not mainstream price enough to be able to reach a mass market. So your target audience is going to be a lot smaller. It's going to be a little bit more niche. It's going to have that kind of feeling to it. So a lot of education, a lot of sampling, a lot of components, because even though kombucha has been around for a long time, people still don't really know it, or they've had a bad experience like I did at the beginning. So they have preconceptions of what kombucha is. Now, here's some good news. I think there's two big trends right now. One is 10 to 15% growth for kombucha is predicted until 2030, right? So that means that's really good. It means that more consumers are looking at getting into the category, especially that younger Gen Z who's getting a little bit more disposable income now. They're choosing these better for you products, more education on gut health, which means people are going to be choosing less soda, less kind of the traditional mainstream Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, choosing to have more of these functional beverages, which is why Coke and Pepsi and all these major players are buying up these functional drink brands so that they can extend their portfolio out and start to have that. So growth is good. The second trend is the Poppis of the world, the Olipops, the prebiotic and probiotic sodas, the better for you soda category. It's booming, which means that consumers want lower sugar, they want more function, they want more benefit. And so they're starting to choose beverages that are better for them, which means that the whole category, right, the rising tide lifts all ships, which is great news. So if you are in that type of functional category, it's growing, you're in good hands. So that's going to be some context that we have. Now, if you look at kombucha, small audience, and you've got some different brands. So in front of me, I've got some different brands at Whole Foods, different price points, usually ranging from about $2 to about $4.50 per, depending on the size. Market leader is GTs. You can see here, you've probably seen them. And look at even GT, like for me, like even getting to licensing of Supergirl, like that's pretty crazy. And this one had $1 off ring coupon on it, which means that these marketers are dialed in. They're starting to say, hey, we want to get more trial. Maybe these aren't moving as fast within that. They want to be able to create some velocity. But interesting that they would kind of get into the licensing game with Supergirl. So you know what, it'd be interesting to see if it actually moves the needle, if this is the right fit for that audience. I think going after that younger, probably female, Gen Z, trying to get them into the category. I bet they're trying to use that. And so, hey, good for you guys. I love it. For me, experiment, try it, measure it. If it doesn't work, you move on. You don't want to sink the ship with obviously paying too much. But I think as GT, market leader, so right now they have about 30 to 40% of total share of the category, which is pretty good. Then you've got, Kavita, and you've got different brands that have about 16%. And then you've got these smaller regional brands, like even this one, Alive and Well. Just met their co-founder, Trevor Landry. Great guy, really good brand, good product as well, which is awesome. So Texas regional brand. And you even got Humm. Humm right now is actually launching more of a functional side with their kombucha, which is an actual interesting take, is trying to create some adaptogens that mix it in here. And I thought, you know what, that's actually not bad. And it's in the metal can, which for a lot of people who are looking at sustainability, they like that. They can refill it if they really want to. And so it's kind of unique in what they're doing. Dr. Brew, about 16%, 15 to 17, depending on what you're looking at in terms of market share. So obviously, really good kombucha. They've been around for a long time, and they've done a really good job. So the question we have is, well, if we're in this category, what do we need to do to grow? And as a marketer, you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, like what should we look at? Well, we go back to our fundamentals, which is the Core 8 methodology that we always use. Yes, I keep hounding you for the fundamentals because it's so important. So number one is having that clear vision for that brand. Where do you want to go? What business are you really in? And I think that as kombucha, I think that the question I've asked, even founders is, are you in the kombucha space or are you in the functional beverage space? Where do you play? And I think the answer is you are playing in functional beverages. People are choosing not because they love kombucha, but they're choosing the benefits of fermented tea. They want the gut health. They want the functional benefits. And so they're going to choose products that are going to help them function better in the lifestyle that they want, right? That's a really important piece. So they want to make sure that that functional benefit is there. And if it's kombucha, great. If it's more prebiotic soda, they're going to choose that. Now, here's the interesting part. When you get into kombuchas, the one thing I think is holding the industry back is the flavor profiles, I think, are a little bit too premium. They're a little bit hard for people to get into. So if I look at the success of Olipop, if you look at Poppi, you look at the growth that they're having, I think it's that they have volume so they can get the price point down, but they also have very attractive flavors that people are used to. So if they're trading off of Coke and Pepsi and Dr. Pepper, what are they trading into? And they're trading into original cola. They're trading into cherry cola. Like they're trading into flavors that they're used to drinking, but they want a better for you option. And so I think that's where the Poppis, even though we've heard that, the functional benefits aren't as good and they're in trouble right now because there's not as much prebiotic fiber as they thought, blah, 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 blah. But I think what people want though is the lower sugar, the flavors that they want. And yes, they're not looking for massive gut health. If they really wanted that level, they would eat supplements. They would do different things that would actually help them if they actually had real problems. But I think what's happening is the mainstream audience and the people that are drinking most carbonated drinks are a younger demographic. They're the teenagers all the way up to about 40, 45. After that, you start to then worry, a little bit more carbonation makes you feel bloated. They don't like it. You start to see still more options. So this is a young person's game. This is a young consumer game. And so trading off of these flavor profiles from these major brands is what they want. So I think as kombucha, so if you start looking at here, like, strawberry peach mint, this is the Whole Foods private label option of kombucha. Strawberry peach mint, pretty safe, pretty there. If you look at Alive and Well, now they have a Palo Santo kombucha. That's a very sophisticated flavor profile. If you even ask me, what is Palo Santo as a flavor? I'd be like, I have no idea. I'm sure it's delicious though. But will I pay $4 for this when I can choose $2 Olipop beside it with a flavor that I know, or a flavor profile of kombucha that I might already know? That's where that risk is, which means for me, regional players, they're going to have to sample like crazy, or they're going to have a line that gets people in that's a little bit more approachable. So for me, it's saying, hey, have your line that's more sophisticated, but you might want to consider a potential lineup that is more easy profile of flavors that consumers will get. Because if the risk is too high, if the price point is $3, $4, $4.50 for one drink, and it's a new consumer to your brand, they're not going to choose you. It's too much of a trial hurdle for them to get over. So I think look at your profiles to say, well, who are we really going after? Dr. Brew, this one's called Mountain Ginger, right? Mountain ginger. I don't know the difference of valley ginger versus mountain ginger. I'm sure it's the same thing. I'm like, ooh, a little puffery here. Mountain ginger. Oh, delicious. Right? But you know what ginger is. And you're like, okay, I get it. And ginger is associated with calming of your stomach, with different components of functionality. So it's great. This one right here, Synergy. Now, Synergy is, this one is guava goodness, right? Guava goodness. I love the alliteration, the double G. You know what kind of guava is, which is going to be a little bit more of that tropical fruit flavor. Obviously the goodness part is just because as marketers, we just love to be like, oh, it's the best. It's amazing. It's the goodness. But you can see as a GT, as a leader of the category, you have to have very approachable flavor profiles, and you're going to have a wide breadth. Right now, I think the facings of GT in the category was maybe 12, 15. Like that's a lot of facings, which means they're going to have to defend that shelf space big time from competitors who are going to want to take. And I think that's going to be GT's probably the biggest thing is how do you protect your shelf space? Because the freezer and the cooler section is only so big. So that cooler section, there's not more of it, which means that the buyer is not going to give you lots more unless you can really prove how it's going to grow the category incrementally. Most likely, they're going to say, hey, listen, we're giving you guys a ton of shelf space. We're going to let a few of those facings go, and we're going to introduce a new one. And GT is going to come back and say, no, we're market leaders. You do this. the whole category might shift down. And that's going to be their argument. These new upstarts is going to say, hey, we've got these flavors that new consumers want to go. We want to steal, we want to take their spots, and it's going to help grow the whole category. And as a buyer, you have no idea. And so that's why it's so important that each brand has to have strategies for a specific audience that's going to choose them for a specific reason. And if it's the same, if things feel about the same, they're not going to choose you. So here's some different things, some strategies that I think is going to be really important for kombucha brands, or if you're in a competitive category. Number one, what is the usage occasion of kombucha? Right? Think about that. I want you to think through the product format. When do you actually drink kombucha and why? So do you drink it every day? Is it an everyday option? And when during the day? Is it after lunch? Is it breakfast time? Is it evening? So I think one thing is that if I was looking at kombucha, I would start to look at your day parts. When do I drink it? And how often should I? Is this for me, it's like, is this everyday kombucha, or is this once in a while when you're actually maybe not feeling great? Or maybe you feel like, man, I just kind of ate a little bit too much sugar. Maybe you had that piece of cake you shouldn't have had. Maybe you start looking through and being like, man, I could just really use a bit of a cleanse. Perfect. Kombucha is your time. That's called usage occasion marketing. You want to start to choose usage occasions to educate consumers. When should I actually drink your product? And because I think the category is so niche, I don't think consumers actually know. And these can be trigger points for them to actually understand and be like, hey, you know what? It's like, it's Wednesday kombucha day, or it's Friday kombucha night. That would be a great piece to actually get into some, what we call a little bit more loyalty, a little bit more kind of, usage for them to enjoy. So that's one, I think. And then you can use influencers. You can use UGC and social content that reinforces a specific day part. and usage. The second one is where else can people use it? Well, if we see the trends right now, I'm seeing alcohol is not super hot. The last report I saw is alcohol is down 21% since 2020. That's a lot. That's a huge amount of decline. Why is that? Well, you're going to get boomers that are not drinking as much as they age, but you also have a lot of this younger demographic that is starting to say, you know what, I actually don't love drinking as much alcohol anymore, and I can still have a good time without it, and I'm going to start to choose different occasions and not have alcohol. So we're seeing the rise of non-alcoholic beer, one of the fastest growing segments. We're seeing mocktails growing. We're seeing more restaurants offer more options, which means that consumers want this option. And kombucha is the perfect fit. And I think what's happening right now is that I would start looking at that category and saying, guys, like, don't lead with kombucha. I would say lead with your flavor, lead with this kind of this mocktail style where it's sophisticated, that it feels like it can be a great alternative to that alcohol occasion. And I think you then target that younger demographic, you make it more sophisticated so that people can have it at parties, they can have it at baby showers, they can have it at bridal showers. You have an alternative where, yeah, you might have alcohol there, but then you also have non-alcoholic kombucha. You have different options for people to be able to choose, but yet still feel like that social occasion is there. And the flavor profile, I think, makes it very, very synonymous with a alcohol alternative. And so now you're not just competing against other kombuchas, you're actually competing against alcohol, or you're competing against soda, you're competing against just having water. And so you can actually start to really grow it as you are the OG functional beverage that's in it. And so the other one is that we're looking at different, what I call subcategories of your brand. Now, subcategories are when you have specific flavor profiles for specific audiences. So you might have, we're going to call it the entry-level flavors. So you might have a line of kombucha that is very similar flavor profiles to, say, soda. And this is going to be our entry for some of what we call the light users to actually get into the category. We're going to kind of warm them up into the kombucha. And then you can have another flavor profile that you might add more functional benefits to it so that they, people looking for more gut health. Maybe there's more, energy that they're looking for. And you can start to combine functional benefits with your kombucha as well. So I think starting to look at, well, where do we play and what does that look like? Even as your brand, could your brand extend not just as kombucha, but as a functional beverage? So maybe you have more of a better for you energy drink. It doesn't have any kombucha, it doesn't have any fermentation in it. But you can use that with your brand. Could there be other components like that you can get into? So you can start to see where your brand can extend, how it looks. And the other one I think is regionality. You have to come back with, if you're a smaller brand, own your region. If you can't win in your own backyard, in your own state, in your own, say, regional geography, you're not going to win halfway across the country. If you are a Texas brand, you're not going to win in California if you can't win in Texas. If you're a Texas brand, you're not going to win in New York if you can't win in Texas. You have to really look at, there's enough audience where you're at, get your velocity in, get your consumer feedback, get those retailers, get that velocity story humming before you start looking elsewhere. Because if you can't win in your own backyard, you're not going to win anywhere else. So sampling, the event marketing, sponsorship, getting loyalty. Now, the one thing with kombucha, the latest thing I heard is that loyalty rate in kombucha is very low, which means people try it once, but they don't necessarily rebuy, or they're going to choose and switch brands. So that's, as a marketer, that for me is like, man, you spend so much time and energy creating awareness and trial, and then the consumer leaves you. Why is that? Well, maybe one is they didn't have a good experience with kombucha. Maybe they had another brand. But I think that the kombucha is like, where does it fit into my lifestyle? Who do I really connect with? What are those core values? And I think kombucha for a long time has been in that kind of hippie, vegan, better for you, tree hugging kind of environment where it was that kind of audience that was kind of looking for this. And a lot of the brands have kind of stayed there because they're legacy brands and it's really hard for them to move out. But as the new entrants, and I think like Alive and Well, even Humm, I think they're really looking at audiences that we can actually tap into more sophisticated mainstream audiences who don't associate with that, that hippie kind of green lifestyle, but actually want functional beverages because they like the body, they like what it does to their body, they like how it feels, they want to be associated with that. And it's kind of where Whole Foods has kind of extended past the granola crowd into more of the higher disposable income, more sophisticated, higher educated consumer who's willing to pay more for better for you products. So make it look and feel like it's something that they own, that they can be a part of, that doesn't make them feel like, ooh, I'm doing this fringe brand. They want to feel like, I want them to be able to show up to a party, bring your mixed case, be able to pass it to their friends, feel confident with it. And so the branding needs to feel, and the messaging needs to feel sophisticated and for them. So these are the different things that we're kind of working through. So your social media, to your distribution, to your sampling, to your regional strategy, your functional benefits, your formats even. So a lot of mixed cases I think are going to come back. Even smaller sizes, taller cans, portability. Now the one problem is with kombucha, you have to keep it refrigerated, which is going to hinder your distribution and how you actually sell it a little bit. But I think that the more that you get people used to going to that chilled section, seeing that, I think kombucha is going to grow. But you're not selling kombucha. You're selling a functional beverage that consumers love. And that's where we need to go. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brand Builders. Get into membership if you are not, because if you love marketing, man, we love chatting about it. Our cohorts, we're always talking through what's the latest, what's the greatest, what problems are marketers dealing with. We'd love to have you come join us, and I'll see you next time.